What's going on, everybody? Welcome back once again. This is the Crew First Culture podcast. My name is Jeremy, and thank you for joining me today. So, took a little break last episode from our leadership lessons learned, but going to jump back into it now with number 4. And number 4 is it's going to be one of those that I'm probably going to have to break down into a few others later on, but it's definitely a good start with the topic. But we're going to talk about culture is non-negotiable. Just right out the bat, I'm just going to kind of define how I feel culture, or what I feel culture is. So culture is how we do things. It's how we think, and it's how we react to the environment around us. So if you think about it in that terms, in other words, culture is everything. And specifically for the discussion that I'm going to be sharing today, culture in the Firehouse is everything. So when I was early on in my, whatever you want to call it, my term, my time, I guess, as a station officer, I didn't know what culture was as far as this interpretation of it, or this way of using it as far as organizationally. But once I started to understand, once I started to learn about it, man, I really, really started to see quickly how important it was. And so once that became something that was familiar to me, that firehouse culture became a huge priority for me as the station officer, if not one of the biggest priorities. Because to me, everybody in the organization or in the crew, however you want to look at it, has a piece of it. We're all affecting the culture, but ultimately weight of and the responsibility for what that culture is and what it looks like lays on the shoulders of that station officer, especially if we're talking about within a crew, which is basically kind of what I'm focusing on here. So, like I said, it can be hard to define sometimes. I think there are a lot of people out there that don't really understand it. I think there are a lot of people out there that maybe even turn their nose up to it because to them it's just something that is meaningless. People talk about it, but they don't really understand it, and they don't think it is really a big deal. To me, even though it is hard to define, being somebody that knows how important it is and put such a high priority into culture, it's really easy to spot. And by that, I think that if you really think about it, if you haven't noticed, you will start to see how easy it is to spot. And so by that, I mean, look at any crew that's around you. You go to their firehouse, you see them on scene. Maybe it's a department or a crew that you've never been around and you're just kind of going to visit. It's so obvious and quickly obvious where the culture is at when you start to walk inside the doors of a firehouse. What is the crew like? Are they all spread out and hiding and not communicating, or really sharing any time together at all? Do they eat together? Do they joke around? Are they in the recliners all day? Are they negative and spilling out rumors and everything else that they can? Is it a positively centered culture that you go there and you just feel energized? How do they act on scene? Are they kind of laid back? I feel that is giving them too much credit. Are they a crew that is hiding out in the shadows or sits in their rig until they're called? Or are they a crew that is front and center and they are where the action is? Or at the very least, they are making themselves visible so that when somebody's needed, they're right there to be put in play. These are the things that maybe it's just me knowing the importance of culture that I can start to pick these things out. For me, it's so interesting to just take a step back and kind of see where things are as far as culturally within different crews. And I think that it's very telling, really, for that station officer where that culture is. What is their priority? Because I think it would be, unless you have an officer that is newer to the station and hasn't really had a chance to maybe implement some things. If you see a crew with a really bad culture, with any of the things that I just discussed, it probably means that officer, lack of better terms, it means that officer is teaching them by his own example, his or her own example of what they want. And that's what happens, is that's the culture that is created. So to me, like I said at the title, culture is non-negotiable. And I don't even, that's not even me. That's not a question. It's non-negotiable. Culture exists no matter what. We can do everything we can possibly do to affect the culture in a good way and create something that we want, or we can literally do nothing to the culture. We can put no energy into it. We can literally just sit, and that culture is still there. It's completely different from the other one, but it's still there. It's a culture of complacency. It's a culture of laziness. It's a culture of incompetence, and on and on and on. So no matter what you are doing or no matter what you're not doing, that organizational culture exists, and it will always exist. So the choice is ours. We can have a culture of design, which means we create it, putting our efforts and our energy into the things that are important, that are going to help us to be better at our job, that are going to help us to connect on a better plane emotionally. It can help us become a better crew, or we can do nothing and we can just accept the default culture of wherever it lands. And I promise you, there are so many places out there, crews, even whole departments they seem perfectly fine with just accepting whatever default culture comes their way. And it's sad and it's dangerous and it's frustrating. But for me, kind of the goal that I will set is a healthy, positive focused, growth oriented culture. And man, I'm telling you, as somebody that has seen the transition into this type of culture and to be a part of that, it is such a special thing. It is so special to not only feel that feeling and to be a part of that, but to be a part of growing and making it transition into that was awesome. I mean, it truly was amazing to be a part of. But none of it happened on accident. Not even close. Everything that we harvested as far as the good culture from that was a result of hard work and consistency and a lot of time. And so kind of for me, and a lot of people ask this, why, if culture is so important, why isn't it being taught? Why don't you see courses and things like that in officer development as far as how to build and grow a healthy, positive culture? Well, I honestly don't know outside of some very obvious answers. The first one is it's hard. It's really, really hard to make a cultural change. And to compound on top of that difficulty is the time that it takes. It's super slow. Changing culture takes so much time. It takes so much energy. It takes so much emotional, just everything. It will take everything that you have. So it's not something that a lot of people want to deal with. Even some that are interested in it and they believe in it. But once they get involved in that process, they aren't able to stay consistent with it. And They just don't make it to that rewards at the end, and not really at the end, but they don't see that positive change because they can't stick with it long enough. So it's hard. It's incredibly time and energy consuming. And that's why a lot of people don't do it, or that's what I think. So to me, nothing in this is easy. And one of the leadership lessons later on is going to be talking through actually my version of how to create a good special culture. So I don't want to get into all that, but I will say that something that came to me really early on in the crew first culture stuff is a statement that it made such a big impact on me that I even have it placed on the back of the first coins that I had made. And so it says, nothing has a bigger impact on positive cultural change than the influence of a respected leader who leads by example. So to leave you with just a few short thoughts here, there's so much to that statement. If cultural change is something you're wanting to be a part of and wanting to lead, that's great. I will say that, man, I'm proud of you. I believe that you can make those changes, but you've got to be prepared for the process. But to help you in that process, just like what I just said, there are some big words that are in this statement. The influence of a respected leader. What are you doing to influence those around you in order to create cultural change? What are you doing to grow and earn the respect of those around you as that leader? And the last one, it's the leading by example. I don't think that you're going to ever get good, firmly rooted cultural change if you don't have a leader that is willing to walk that mile with their people. Leading by example. That's a huge piece of all this. So just something to think about. You know, like I said, I'm so happy that I get to share some of these lessons learned. For me, I wish that I knew them beforehand so that I could go into my career as a station officer with this knowledge right away. And I didn't. But what I can do is I can share it with you. And hopefully, even if you are an older station officer, it's never too late to learn some of these lessons. But the greatest impact, I think, will be for anyone that is either early on in that process or even those that see it in the distance, something that they want to be a part of. We can learn these lessons today and have that as part of our foundation before we even get started. I think that's pretty it's pretty impactful, and I'm glad that I get to share this with you. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. As always, I look forward each and every time to get back on here and share, and hopefully be back on in a not too distant future with some guests and be able to bounce around some ideas off of them as well. So thank you. Look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, remember, it doesn't matter what or where you came from. Great things can come from you. Thank you.